So you got yourself the awesome bike. You've got the coolest gear, and some awesome roads to ride on. You even got yourself a hipster check shirt and spent many a year making sure that your beard game is strong. But sadly, your videos are still a bit boring. But fear not, because with the help of the Insta360 One X2, I'm going to go out on my bike on my favourite local loop and show you how you can get some amazing footage on a motorbike. Let's get on with it. There's the end of that little circuit. I hope you enjoyed that. As a little bonus for all of you that have hung around this long, let's take a look at how I mounted the camera to create all of these different shots. And then after that, I will share with you my various thoughts and opinions about the Insta360 One X2 and how I've gotten on with it, using it today and over the trip that I've just taken to Austria. So first of all, how did you mount the camera, Andy? Now the first setup I'm going to use, which I affectionately named the narwhal, is just using a ram arm which is attached to the screen mounting point on the motorbike. Actually using the ball mount which came originally attached to the clamp that was in the motorcycle kit from Insta360. I robbed that because it had a thread in it and then attached it to the screen of the motorbike to give me this nice front sticking out setup. And obviously, as is going to be a common theme throughout all of these setups, you need to think about having everything in line and bearing in mind where the stitch line is going to be, because this camera is going to have a stitch line across that axis between the two lenses. So trying to get the knob on the ram mount in the right place, trying to also think about not having my hands in the middle of the split line. So I actually have it slightly angled so that the split line is going to go off one shoulder and off down to one corner of the shot, and hopefully won't bother us too much in the video. Setup number 2, I'm naming the perp, purely because it's perpendicular to the bike, sticking out sideways. Once again with the same ram arm there, doing the holding job. It's then being held onto the bike by this ram tough claw clamp, which is in fact extremely similar to the Insta360 one in the motorcycle kit, but I already had this one. It's just a bit bigger and a bit tougher. Important with this position to remember is that you don't want to get the split line on anything that's going to be close up. So I've angled it so that the split line here is shooting off into the air, and then the rest of it is just bobbing off down past the pipes to the ground. In earlier attempts I have had this a lot more level, but that ended up with a really weird thing happening with this fill panel being chopped in half and then offset from itself. It looked really odd, and it's a bit disturbing to the eye to watch the video. So yeah, something to think about. That's the perp. Next rig I'm calling the Tail End Charlie. Two ram arms now together, joined by a double ball piece in the middle there, clamped via the tough claw onto the AndyManCam SLC rack that I've got. Obviously you could use a foot peg, grab rail, whatever is at the back here. Gives a nice view of all that wide open back wheel and a view forward of everything that's going on at the front end of the bike from the back. Because of the long nature of this arm, obviously this is going to bobble around a little bit more, but the flow state stabilization is pretty bloody good on these cameras, so hopefully it won't look too crazy. But yeah, that's the Tail End Charlie. This next one is a little bit ridiculous. It's the pterodactyl, hanging off the back of my crash helmet using a standard GoPro sticky mount and an aluminium extension arm, very much like the one inside of the Insta360 Unicorn kit. Important here as ever to keep the knobs and things in line with the lenses to make sure they get removed from the picture. This one does hang very heavy off the back of the helmet, so you wouldn't want to ride with it for too long, plus endless potential safety issues. Use at your own risk. This next lightly leery looking setup is the bird's eye view, and it's just the selfie stick that came with the camera attached to the back of my AndyManCam backpack, and then extend it out as far as it will go so that the camera is going to be sticking up above my head. And for those of you who might be worried about safety, I've also got a little 1/4-20 thread tether thingy which I've used to tie the whole thing to the back of the bag. And it's really handy that this Legend Gear backpack from AndyManCam has got these molly patch tabs and loops on it, so that gives me something to hook this onto. I have also tried with the selfie stick poked into the back of my jacket, but I really didn't enjoy that. I can't recommend it. It kept bashing on my helmet and it was horribly uncomfortable, so that's a no-go. But yeah, this is the bird's eye view. Although as you can see, it's not a true bird's eye view because it's actually going off to an angle, but I found with most of these views, having everything central to the bike is just a bit boring. When you add a bit of sideways action, everything gets far more interesting. That's exactly what she said. Next rig on the list is the midget on the tank bag. I've got the camera with the long ram arm mounted onto a ram ball mirror mount that I've got because I've got bar end mirrors on this bike. That is putting the camera center line of the bike over the ignition, kind of just rearwards of the headstock, getting the view we get if we were really small and we're sat on the tank bag. The midget on the tank bag. I don't know why I really need to explain it. It was kind of self-explanatory, really, wasn't it? Now the next setup I'm calling the innocent bystander. It's just the selfie stick that came with the camera attached to a mini tripod, and I'm leaving it here at the apex of this corner. And then the final setup is the Wing Mirror Extreme. I've got the camera mounted onto the same ram ball mirror mount as before, this time with the two arms to put it as far out to the side as possible. Pretty much where you would have a wing mirror if you had a wing mirror that was 1/2 meter long, just to try and get some nice views from the side, because this has been a very right hand side heavy video, I'm afraid. But yeah, this is the Wing Mirror Extreme. With the riding out of the way, it's time to tell you how I've actually been getting on with the Insta360 One X2 over the last couple of months. I should at this point also say that Insta360 did provide the camera free of charge for me to test, but no money has changed hands in exchange for good reviews where it isn't deserved. To be honest, this thing is nothing short of amazing. The fact that it gives you the freedom, the complete flexibility to choose your shot from anything all around you, it's just meant all of the worry about sorting the shot out, getting things right, most of it's taken away, because no matter where you put the camera, you can point your view wherever you want afterwards while you're editing the video. But if you want to be particularly picky, things like the super bright LED screen on the front is absolutely fantastic for checking your shot is just right, making sure you've got all your mounts and things cut out with the disappearing selfie stick feature that this camera has. And the screen itself has proven to be absolutely brilliant in bright sunlight, easy to see, easy to read, all the information you need is right on there. It's been a real help to be able to use that. Plus, most of the settings that you need, you can change within this little menu. There's some settings you have to change within the app if you want specific things, but mostly you can get to everything you need on the screen here. The camera itself is completely waterproof, I mean more than waterproof, for riding on a bike in pouring rain, which I can confirm this camera can deal with. It's nice and tough feeling, it feels sturdy, it feels solid, it's got a lovely weight to it, as well as being small enough and slim enough that you can literally shove it in your pocket. Battery life of the camera has been more than adequate for my needs. Insta360 say the battery will last about 80 minutes on a charge, and I can confirm that's about as long as it's been lasting for me. And to be honest, I don't tend to ride much longer than that between tea breaks, so it's been just great for my purposes. But if you're on longer rides, a spare battery really would make your life a lot easier. But of course, thankfully, if you don't want to have a spare battery or you don't want to be changing batteries, you can open this little hatch here for the USB-C charging port, plug in the USB battery pack. You get that noise, and now the camera is running off of the power from the battery pack, and you can record while that's happening, so potentially endless recording time. Although that hasn't been completely seamless, but more on that in a second. The flow state stabilization built into the camera, well, built into the software that you use to process the video afterwards, is nothing short of magical. The videos come out nice and steady. The only time I really had any kind of a problem was when I used the HDR feature, and although that gives you a really good picture, it doesn't really like the vibrations of the motorbike that much, and you get this weird ghosting around the horizon. The camera apparently supports memory cards up to 1 terabyte in size, so if you've got more money than you know what to do with, you can buy yourself a memory card that will cost twice as much as the camera, but you could then record forever. I've been using a 256GB card, and I've found that's lasted more than enough for me to get a full day of video. One thing I've really enjoyed about this camera is it has no extra cage, cradle, nothing like that. There's just a 1/4-20 thread on the bottom, which you can use, for example, to connect the selfie stick, which itself is absolutely brilliant. It's really simple, but it's really well done. It's nice and small, almost small enough to fit in your pocket. There's no catches, no clips. You just literally pull it out, and then you're in selfie mode. And as you probably already know, the videos come out with the selfie stick completely erased, so it just looks like the camera's hovering in space, which I found to be, on the motorbike, absolutely amazing. The fact that you get this crazy sort of drone shot, like the camera's following you while it's floating in midair. You can mount this camera almost anywhere with so much freedom by being able to put in a GoPro connector, a Ramble connector, you can stick it on a tripod, you can stick it on the selfie stick, without any extra accessories needed to achieve that. And I've also just found it incredibly fast to use. You can have it stuffed in your pocket, whip it out, quickly bosh in your selfie stick, pull off your protective sleeve, turn on the camera, selfie stick out, and you're recording just like that. It's so quick and it's so easy. And like I already said, the setup with the shot is practically nothing, because you set the shot up afterwards. All you need to do is wave this thing around, and then afterwards you can make sure that what you want to be directly in the shot is in the shot. And to be honest, the speed at which you can whip this camera out and start recording has made it so accessible and so indispensable that I've actually got an Osmo Pocket as well, which since I've had the Insta360 One X2, I haven't really used this at all except in this video. Now there are a few features of the camera which I haven't actually tested or used very much. Things, for example, like the 4 microphones on the camera, which apparently give you a very immersive audio experience. You can actually go into the settings and control the shutter speed, that kind of thing. Plus you can use the app on Android or iPhone to edit your videos without even going near a computer. I haven't really done that so much because I've just been sticking it straight into my editing software. As for the accessories I've been using, obviously there's the awesome selfie stick, handy little neoprene pouch, I've got the rubber lens cover thing. Both of those have been indispensable when I've been bunging the camera into tank bags and pockets and things while I'm on the road. I've also got the mic adapter, which also provides a charging port. This has been very useful. For example, when I'm powering the camera, if I just plug a cable in there, I've had a few cases where if the cable isn't perfectly in line with the lens of the camera, then the cable actually pokes into the shot a little bit and it looks really rubbish. With this mic adapter, as well as providing a 3.5mm microphone input jack, it also means that that power port is now facing completely in line with the camera, and it's much easier to keep that cable out of the shot. It's also considerably cheaper than the mic adapter from GoPro, hashtag just saying. I also bought myself with my very own money a spare battery for the camera, and the thing that really opens up the possibilities with this is Insta360 also sent me the fast charging cradle, which is incredibly useful if you're on the road because you can charge 3 batteries simultaneously. This means if you don't want to go the route of plugging the power directly into the camera, or if the camera is hanging 20 feet off the side of your bike because you've got it on a massive scaffolding pole, you don't have to worry about running a cable up there because you can just have batteries charging in your tank bag while you're riding. Plus the box that the battery comes in is pretty cool because it's got a little section for a spare memory card, and the battery fits in there lovely, nice and protected. Otherwise I've been using a few bits and bobs from the Insta360 motorcycle kit and the Unicorn kit, but mostly I've been leaning on the RAM parts that I already had, and also the RAM style bits that come in the motorcycle kit from Insta360, because I find the extra weight and the solidity of those mounts just takes away some of the vibration from the bike. Now obviously not everything can be all good, There've been a couple of niggles and annoyances with this camera. No massive deal breakers, but a few things that just irritated me a little bit. The first of those is the fact that although the LED screen on the front is extremely bright, easy to see, even in direct sunlight, the record LED, the little red one on the front, outside in the direct sunlight is really difficult to see. There were a few times where the camera lost power, and I'll come to that in a second, and I couldn't tell that the camera had stopped recording because I couldn't actually see the light flashing. Now the next of my niggles is that when the camera is recording continuously, it creates files of around about 10 gigabytes in size, 2 per video obviously, 1 for each lens, and those videos are about half an hour long. When the camera stops and starts the next file, it's not continuous. There's a break, actually up to about 20 seconds in between those videos. Obviously that's not the end of the world, 20 seconds isn't forever, but if you're recording something continuously and you can't afford to have a break, you need to be conscious of when you start and stop the camera, maybe stopping and starting it yourself at the half an hour point to make sure that there's going to be no breaks in your recording. I had a couple of cases where I was recording continuously with the camera and I went through a tunnel, for example, and I was going to do this crazy sweeping wormhole effect sort of thing as I went through the tunnel. But when I came to edit the video, lo and behold, would you believe it, the break was exactly the point I went through the tunnel, so I had me approaching it, I had me leaving it in my dust, but nothing of me actually going through the tunnel itself. The next irritation I had was that I found that sometimes the camera could be a bit picky with memory cards. Before my Austria trip, I bought myself a couple of these Samsung 256GB Evo Select cards. These are U3 cards. I used them without any problem at all in my GoPro Hero 8 at 4K high bitrate, yet the 1X2 recorded for a couple of minutes and then stopped, gave an error saying the memory card was too slow and closed itself off. Which is why I say the camera is picky, because this memory card theoretically should work fine, and the memory card that I've had the most success with is an older one that I've got, which is actually only a U1 memory card, and that's a SanDisk Ultra A1 256GB card. This one has worked flawlessly without any trouble. So if you're buying memory cards for the camera, definitely try it out before you use it in a sensitive situation where you can't repeat what you're trying to record, because that will be annoying. I should also add that the Insta360 branded memory cards that they sent with the camera, I've got a 64 and a 32GB one. These have worked absolutely flawlessly, no trouble at all. So if you want a safe bet, just get yourself a memory card with the camera. Now another problem I had was with the power. To start with, all I had was the one battery, and I only had one battery throughout my Austria trip, so I was relying very heavily on charging the camera from the power on the bike. And for some reason, while I was up the top of the Stelvio Pass, the camera kept disconnecting from the power. It's not fair to say that that's the camera's fault. It could well have been my USB charging port on the bike, but it was very annoying that the power dropped out. And to be honest, I think in that case, it would have just been much easier for me if I'd have had a spare battery at the time. While on the subject of the power, this little door hatch thingy is held into the camera by a little rubber tab there. So if you want to run the camera off of fixed power, plug the cable in, and then you've got this door flapping around in the wind, which on a motorbike means it's flapping pretty bloody quick, and that's obviously going to show up in your shot because it's sticking out forwards of the lens. It also gets completely in the way if you try and use the mic/power adapter thing here, and you can't actually push it all the way in without damaging that little rubber tab, which I've already done. So you actually have to remove that by pulling it out and then connecting your mic adapter or your cable in order to stop the door from showing up in your shots, which means you could potentially lose that. I'm not sure if you can get spare ones of those. Plus also, when you want to attach it back to the camera, it's incredibly fiddly to get the little knob into the tiny little hole. I know. And that's it. I think that's pretty much everything I can think of with my experience so far with the Insta360 One X2. It has been an absolutely amazing experience using this thing. You can mount this camera in one position and create 6 shots out of it. You can be looking forwards, backwards, left, right, up, down, create 4 different angles, or you can get dynamic and sweep the camera between all of these things and see everything all at once. It is literally the most versatile piece of camera equipment that I've used so far. So much so that I'm actually considering completely getting rid of a couple of my GoPros and just using this camera in their places. So yeah, the Insta360 One X2 gets a big fat AndyManCam thumbs up. All I really need to do to make it perfect is to get enough batteries to fill my charging cable and get another opportunity to get out on the bike and into the mountains. So to finish, thank you so very much once again to Insta360 for sending me this amazing piece of kit over. You guys have done a great job with this thing and I've really enjoyed using it. Links to get hold of your own One X2 as well as all of the accessories that I've used throughout this video will be in the description below. They're all affiliate links, so if you buy something using one of those links, you'll be giving a little kickback to the channel, so thanks for that. And finally, thank you so very much for watching this video. I hope it's been useful to you. I hope you've enjoyed it, and if either of those ring true, do the right thing and give the video a thumbs up. So that's that. I've been AndyManCam, this has been the Insta360 One X2, and you've made it to the end of the video. See you next time. Ta-ra.